Morning. I call to order this adjourned special meeting of the Mayor and City Council of the City of San Bernardino this Thursday, February 1st, 10 a.m. Councilmember Nickel will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If please all rise.
Please join as we pledge allegiance to the flag of our great nation. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Nickel. At the last meeting on January 22nd, the City Council met for 6 hours to discuss and receive public input on the future of cannabis regulations in our city. On the public hearing regarding the extension of the moratorium, the City Council received almost an hour of public comments, and there were still members of the public that wished to speak, so the City Council continued the public hearing. The City Attorney researched and confirmed that the City Council does have the ability to enact reasonable limitations on public comment during public hearings. There is no requirement that public comment be unlimited during a public hearing. It's imperative that the City Council be able to vote on this matter of the extension of the moratorium today because it expires tomorrow. Additionally, in an attempt to respect the Council's need for other commitments, we would ask that, based on recommendation from the City Attorney, that a motion be put forward to limit public comment during the remainder of this public hearing to no more than 1 hour overall.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilman Charette.
I just want to make a comment. This is, and I'm happy to make that motion. We have heard a lot of public comment. I know this is going to be construed as us shutting down the public. It's my opinion, only an opinion, that at the last meeting we heard from probably it was about 90 to 95% of the industry side of the issue, and the public, the other 45 to 50% of the people that may have an opinion about this issue, for whatever reason, were not able to be here. It was done during a work period, work time, and normal work schedule. And I think it's fair to say, at least I, for one, have had a number of comments from people that are not necessarily in favor of what seemed to be the industry's indication. We are here representing the city of San Bernardino and all of the people of San Bernardino, not just the industry, not just the 45 or 50% that voted one way or the other in the last election. So I think it's just imperative that we get this right for the community. This is going to be with us for a long time. I think we didn't do a great job leading up to the campaign where Measure O was passed, and I think we now have an opportunity to really take the input that we've already received and input that we receive individually, not necessarily publicly, from our constituents, and really delve into this, dig deep, and really do what's right for the community. So with that, again, I believe this will be construed as shutting the public down and not allowing public comment, but I think there's nothing further from the truth in the case, in this particular case. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments? None? Please vote.
Voice vote. Ms. Marquez? Yes. Mr. Barrios?
Sure.
Mr. Charette?
Yes.
Mr. Nickel?
Yes.
Ms. Richard?
Yes.
And Mr. Mulvihill?
Yes.
Thank you.
The item passes.
Thank you very much. So the public hearing, the public comments during the public hearing will be limited to 1 hour, and we'll ask the city clerk to please monitor that. At this time, we have one public speaker on items on the agenda other than the public hearing. It's James Penman.
And, Mr. Mayor, the only other item on the agenda is waiving full reading of the ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you.
Once again, Your Honor, I'm a little confused about this. If I speak now, can I speak during the public hearing?
Correct. So the time that you're taking up now is the 3 minutes. It's allotted to you for items on any item on the agenda.
And then for the...
But public hearing, you would want to restrict your comments during public hearing to the public hearing time that you'll have.
Okay, so I will be able to speak again during the public hearing?
Correct.
Thank you. This is on the ordinance right now, then, is what I would be speaking on. And this is mostly, the public may not be aware of this, but it's in the backup. I know the council is aware of it. The Government Code Section 65858A allows the council to extend the moratorium for an additional 10 months and 15 days by a 4/5 vote. Folks at home and people in the audience need to understand, if the council does not do this, does not pass this ordinance, they lose the ability to regulate marijuana in the city of San Bernardino. They lose that ability. At that point, the state regulations take over. And the city attorney can, and I'm sure will, correct me if I'm wrong. So when people come up and they're upset about the moratorium, they need to understand that if the council does not pass this ordinance, and if this ordinance does not go into effect, the city council loses all control of regulation. Measure O has been declared invalid by the court. The decision is not yet final. Once it's final, it takes effect 15 days after the final decision is released by the court. At that point, the council has that freedom to regulate and do some of the things some of you folks want them to do. But the last thing you want them to do is not pass this ordinance. You want this ordinance passed today so they maintain the legal ability to regulate marijuana in the city and issue licenses. Otherwise, they lose it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. We have no other public speakers. We will now turn the consent calendar. We have a motion. Consent calendar to waive the full reading of the ordinance and the agenda. Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Please take a vote.
On the consent calendar, Ms. Marquez? Yes. Mr. Barrios?
Yes.
Mr. Charette?
Yes.
Mr. Nichol?
Yes.
Ms. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Mulvihill?
Yes.
The item passes 6-0.
Thank you. We will now continue the public hearing. The public hearing is for the adopt ordinance MC 1457 of the Mayor and City Council of the City of San Bernardino, extending the 45-day moratorium related to certain commercial marijuana land uses and activities, outdoor personal cultivation, and cannabis events, up to 10 months and 15 days. The speakers that were in line last time, we will continue with that order, and there are a couple of others, so if you would all mind, please standing to be sworn in. Thank you. Carmel Rowe.
So, I'd just like you guys to know that you do have a choice today. This is not an all or nothing. This is not that you must prohibit marijuana. This is that you had a chance to have some sort of regulations in place. The state law does not say that if you do not enact anything, you forever lose your right. If you did nothing today, state law would take effect. And you know what that would allow? That would allow people to upload their Social Security numbers, input their addresses, and then turn around and give the city time to go ahead and work with the people regarding an ordinance. Now, there is nothing in state law that says that you do have to pass a moratorium. Now, honestly, I understand that we've had 5 years, and at 5 years, we're still here in the last minute. I mean, I don't think that's fair. I come here as a resident. You know, I don't come here as just for the industry, because quite honestly, I got involved with cannabis because I felt that cannabis could save the city of San Bernardino and could put the streetlights on and get rid of the potholes, and that we could all drive down a nice city. So when you guys, 5 years and so many months later, are continuing to not collect the revenue, you know, that is not, that collecting revenue and knowing who the industry is actually by first name and address and social security number is a lot better than not knowing and having police dollars wasted and police time wasted, because I've called the police. It takes a while for them to get there. Now, this morning, you know, I took one last shot at stopping you guys doing this. I filed for an ex parte, a temporary restraining order with the court. And what the judge told me today was that it was premature, basically, that I have to wait until after you guys make the decision, but that I had a point. So, with that being said, you know, I stand here as a resident. I stand here as a resident who voted for regulation, who would appreciate regulation, who attended every single meeting of the Cannabis Commission, and they were good dialogues. The public was there. They were informed. You know, we were allowed to speak. So we, you know, if you guys were to say, hey, state law takes in effect, and we include what we already decided with the Cannabis Commission that we accepted, okay, we would have a problem solved, and then we wouldn't have more lawsuits. We wouldn't have, I mean, people, this morning, okay, so I'm making a record here for appeal. You know, like, first I was like, oh man, I didn't get the temporary restraining order, but you know what, that's not it, it's the record. It's the record on appeal. It's to tell what is actually going on here. You know, and I don't want to take up everybody's time, but I want you to realize that there are a lot of things at stake here. I mean, there is a lot of money being wasted when there could be money being collected. Roger Diamond could not be fighting with the city. Carmel Rowe could not be fighting for the residents of the city. Okay? There could not be Measure M attorneys finally. You guys, your attorneys could be on to better things. The police department could be making more money. They could be on to better things. So today, you know, I'm going to ask you guys to not pass a moratorium, but why don't you go ahead and accept state law? Why don't you go ahead and accept state law with all the recommendations that your Cannabis Commission put before you? Because they were shocked about the moratorium. They thought that they were doing their job so that you guys could accept these recommendations. And it was thrown on them at the last day for the moratorium. So you guys, please, just please consider all the factors. It's not just, hey, does one resident not want marijuana and one resident want marijuana? I'm a resident. I've been a resident for 41 years. I want tax dollars. I want regulation. I want to drive down the street and be able to go in somewhere to buy marijuana. Okay? I want to see the city succeed. I love this city. I love this city with all my heart. I fight for this city as a resident. My last shot today was for residents, but it really wasn't my last shot because the judge told me I could come back. Okay? And this is not a threat. I just want you guys to know what you're actually doing. You guys are not actually helping, but you are hindering and hurting. Everybody could stop fighting and work together and get along if you only listen to the recommendations of your Cannabis Commission, which you already accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Babcock. Ray Mason.
Good morning, everyone. I come from a little different perspective than Ms. Carmel Rowe, and I'm a patient. I'm a dispensary owner, and I'm a father. And I got into this program for all three reasons. Bone cancer is not easy for anyone. Raising a 21 and a 22-year-old is not easy. My children were into marijuana. I got into marijuana because I refused to do chemo. As a patient, I need my products every day. As a father, I like to have my children in school and working. They work at my dispensary. Last week, after attending this meeting, my small shop with one person working was raided with 11 cars. Why? Because we choose to do this? I'm not feeling real good today because this is BS. I listen to Carmel, I listen to my attorney, and they tell me how to fight this fight properly. So things have went sideways because I no longer can afford my products. I don't have a shop open. I have Ken here. I have my partner's dad here. They have health problems. We all do medical marijuana. My shop was providing that. You guys don't have the problems I have. And you wonder why the black market is going to thrive? You wonder why. You see any representation, African Americans in here too tough? Because they're going to run it. They're going to keep doing what they do. And the city going to keep fighting, a good fight, because we want to do something right. You called us rogues last week, Mr. Mickelson. I'm not a rogue. Taxpaying citizen. I'm a veteran of this country. Wasn't fair to say that. It made me get on a list to stand here and tell you personally. Because we are just trying to live like everybody else. The growers, the dispensaries, you want to keep the prices high. We want to keep playing this corporate game until they all come in with their corporations, right? You can't tell me about this moratorium being fair, because I drive down Waterman every day to see if the biggest dispensary in San Bernardino is still operating. And they are. But you can find me 4 times. Little small shop. Ain't even doing 100 patients a day. But you can't find the biggest shop in town? That's not politics? With a shop right across the street from it and one behind it? That's not politics, right? That's a moratorium doing their thing. It's not fair. I'm not going to take up your time, but you're wrong.
Thank you. Maggie Knorr. Anna Cabral.
Good morning, council members. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Ana Cabral. I am an organizer with the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, Local 1167. We know that today you will be taking action on whether or not you're going to be extending the existing moratorium. UFCW would like to look to the future and would like to provide some recommendations, that we support and would like to see included in this city cannabis ordinance to ensure the health and welfare of everyone in San Bernardino is protected. So as you probably are aware, Local 1167 represents thousands of workers that live and work in the city of San Bernardino. Our working men and women work at your local grocery stores, they work in your drugstores, and they live in the community, right? Their children go to school here, so that's why we care a lot about this city. UFCW has been working in the cannabis industry for quite some time now. We've been working across the country, different cities and different states, and we've been able to learn best practices for how this should work. So as the city of San Bernardino moves forward or moves away from the moratorium, we want to make sure that the city passes an ordinance that regulates the industry in a way that promotes sustainability, so the community and workers are protected. So to ensure this, we want the industry to make sure that they have professional and sustainable goals. So it's important that employers are good operators and that they provide good quality jobs. So, UFCW recommends that the labor peace agreement is in place for operators with 3 or more employees. So having a low threshold for labor peace ensures that workers are able to organize and that they have representation and choose whether or not they want representation. Having a union in this industry is another added level of protection, both for workers and employers themselves. And then we know from our members that when there is a union in the workplace, health and safety issues are addressed, that having a union in the workplace helps to cover that. So our members are trained in health and safety issues, and they follow clear guidelines that are in the contract. So this translates to more stability, less turnover, and more oversight. So We really think that this helps sets higher standards throughout the industry. We also recommend, and I'm almost done, we also recommend that the community, since we care about the community, that they fulfill labor standards, both for transparency and fairness. So we recommend that there should be a merit-based system put in place where it protects, because there is no secret that this industry is full of speculators, full of folks that are hoping to cash in on what is known as the green rush. So this isn't good for members. It's not good for the community. We suggest a merit-based system that awards points to those operators that provide a living wage, access to health care, that they have no history of labor violations, and then they plan to mitigate noise and smell and other concerns that has already been addressed by the community members. So and that they also participate in apprenticeship programs that award certified training to the employees. So this merit-based system, if it's put in place, will help create a fair opportunity, not only for everyone, but also those that have been just unfairly disadvantaged by the war on drugs. So thank you again, and we hope that we can continue to work together, and we're committed to helping the city flourish and, move one step closer to making it a world-class city. So thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk indicated that I pronounced the last public comment speaker incorrectly. Is it Maji Noor? Majid.
I lived in San Diego for about 6 years. I was called Mahid plenty of times, so I accept Mahid as well. But my first name is Majid, last name Siraj. I've lived in Redlands for about 36 years, outside of doing my schooling in San Francisco and San Diego. I'm a clinical pharmacist. I've been a clinical pharmacist for about 20 years. I graduated from UC San Francisco in 1996. And I have had a interest in cannabis for therapeutic and medicinal purposes. I'm sorry I wasn't kind of part of the early conversations and previous meetings. This is my first time appearing before you, and I'm not a very good public speaker, so I apologize for a little bit of stutter in my voice. But I go to Harvard every year in April to a meeting called CanaMed, and renowned physicians get together in Harvard, mostly from Harvard Medical Center because it's hosted on the campus of Harvard, and they discuss kind of cutting-edge therapeutics and medicinal use for cannabis. And that involves seizure disorders, pain management. Physicians from all over the world come and discuss cannabis use at Harvard Medical Center. So I've been there 2 consecutive years in April, last April and the April before that. But then I come home and I realize the restrictions. I get back with a great sense of excitement that in a very small way I can help patients. And the elephant in the room here is Loma Linda Medical Center and the VA. We have to be able to provide them quantifiable therapeutic doses of cannabis for their seizure disorders, pain management, sleep disorders, anxiety, or whatever the case may be. I don't advocate illicit drug use, but strictly for therapeutic uses and quantifiable doses. The state has very strict regulations in terms of what people give out and how it's quantified. I also do quite a bit of analytical chemistry where we analyze these compounds for their THC content in these doses that are given out and how they're labeled. And I commend the council and the discussion that we're having here today, which is very progressive. I've been one time before the City of Redlands City Council, and it's and their regulations are very prohibitive, and they have not had open discussions about allowing cannabis distribution in the City of Redlands. So now I've come to the City of San Bernardino and see the opportunities are here in the City of San Bernardino for a closed-door facility doing therapeutic work for patients. I met with 2 physicians last week. They're attending neurologists at Loma Linda. They said at the moment they could recommend 200 patients each for their medicine to a facility that can provide that type of therapeutic doses. I doubt that physicians of that stature and caliber at Loma Linda would recommend their patients to go to a strip club to pick up their to pick up their medicine. I don't know how that would go within the medical community. But again, I won't take up too much of your time. I think getting it right is important. Allowing the right businesses to thrive and provide therapeutic doses of products to the need of the medical community. Ultimately, I hope that the licensing is fair, it's equitable, it's merit-based, and it allows diversity for businesses trying to do the right thing, as you mentioned, Mr. Charette. And getting it right is important. 10 months in the grand scheme of things is not long. Sometimes I work on formulations that take me 3-4 years. I do it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times until I get it right. But 10 months, to some it might seem a small time window, but I think getting the licensing and allowing the right businesses, again, to be fair, the licensing to be fair, equitable, and merit-based, and provide the much-needed therapeutic agents that are available not only to San Bernardino residents, but again, the residents pediatric residents, pediatric patients, adult patients who come from a variety of different places, including Loma Linda, Redlands, and surrounding cities. And again, I commend you for being very progressive. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Penman.
Thank you, Your Honor. James Penman, 221 East Marshall Boulevard, San Bernardino, of council, Milligan, Beswick, Levine, and Knox. Ms. Rowe's point is well taken. However, the city would effectively lose control of who has marijuana facilities in our city and the ability to regulate them if this moratorium doesn't go into effect. The state of California likely would issue licenses, and those licenses, those businesses could be anywhere. I know I as a resident and voter in San Bernardino do not want the state of California deciding where marijuana facilities go in our town. I want the San Bernardino City Council, who we elect, to make that decision. That's why the moratorium needs to be passed. Because if you don't pass it and you subsequently enact some type of legislation, I will tell you what will happen. If Ms. Rowe already has her license, she may come to my firm and hire us to sue you to prevent you from canceling and taking away her ability to continue to operate under that state license. And I think she might have a good shot at it. And I think other people would do the same. When I was city attorney, we went through a lot of litigation with Roger Diamond. We started a case on the Flesh Club in about 1996. That case was settled by the city just last year. Diamond went all the U.S. Supreme Court. He had the case going against the city for 21 years. Do you want to have this matter in limbo for even 3 years? Because that's about how long it will take just the 4th District Court of Appeal. Then you got the California Supreme Court, maybe the 9th Circuit. At least it's going to be for 3 years. I would sound foolish if I stood up here and listed all the reasons we should ban alcohol, and there are many. Why would that be foolish? Because they did that. We had prohibition in this country, and alcohol flourished. I personally, as a resident, would prefer not to have any marijuana facilities in my city. That's just me personally. And the council passed an ordinance some years back prohibiting them. That was great, I thought. Although soon we had wildcat ones that the city attorney's office had to close, and we did. We closed, I think, 34, 35, 36 of them. And that was all at the time. There are a lot more now. When Measure O passed, it prohibits any marijuana facility that isn't licensed under Measure O. So you already have a moratorium in effect anyway. The court order hasn't gone into effect yet, striking down Measure O. To those folks who feel like I do, and you would like not to see marijuana facilities in your city, in our city, consider this. They're already here, and they're going to be here unless the council regulates them. And there are children going in, children who have not undergone full development of their mental faculties. That's still occurring. There are numerous credible medical studies that show that marijuana on minors whose brains are not fully developed, it does have an impact. So instead of being here today to argue why you should ban marijuana, because it's futile. It is futile. The voters of the state have approved it. The voters of San Bernardino have approved it. Those of you out there and in the audience or watching on TV who are opposed to it, we're going to have it. Do you want it the way it is now? I think there's something like 40 to 60 of there. Or do you want it regulated by the city? We need to have it regulated by the city. Am I out of time yet, Mayor, or do I still?
No, you're fine.
Oh, thank you, sir. Mr. Diamond will undoubtedly appeal his loss on Measure O. And he will post a bond, an appeals bond, and that will stay the lower court's order, which means Measure O will stay in effect. And that means that his clients, who have, I think, 3 licenses now, 1 at the Flesh Club and 2 at Fifth and Arrowhead, right across the street from where Ms. Rowe is, and she can't get one, because she's not one of the parcels listed, because she wasn't Roger Diamond's client when that ordinance was presented. Mr. Diamond will tie you up easily for another 3 years. If you're going to get in on the ground floor of this and regulate it and stop the illegal facilities that are presently out there, you need to pass an ordinance that is realistic. So we in this city have these facilities where we want them, not in our neighborhoods, not in certain parts of the city. There are reasonable ways to do it, and I'm sure we'll be discussing that further. Now, I'm aware that there will be some consideration in an ordinance that the city might pass to banning or prohibiting any entity or individual who has previously been cited for operating an illegal marijuana facility in the city or perhaps receiving an administrative civil penalty. That'll be considered, because every city does consider that. And that's something else that this council is going to have to wrestle with. That is going to take time. And the folks in this audience, a lot of them are going to want to come down and speak about that, and they're going to want you not to do that. You've got a long road ahead of you. I don't think it's going to take 10 months. I think it could be done in a much shorter time than that. And I think you need to get an ordinance on the books soon. Let people challenge it. Amend it later if you need to do it. But start getting the revenue in now. This is a city just coming out of, I say coming out of, I know we're out of it in a sense. I don't know if the automatic stays are still in effect on cases. Maybe they're not now. If they're not, I guess we are out of it. But I know fairly recently, last year, they were still taking place. But I know this city needs revenue. And Norton Air Force Base isn't coming back. We need to get revenue. And the new industry in this state is marijuana. I may not like it, but that's a fact. And just as I'm not going to say, we've got to do something about all the alcohol-related deaths and all the alcohol-related shootings, so let's ban alcohol, I'd have my head in the sand if I was saying that. You folks are going to need to get out of this. The only way you can do it, and I really don't like this, because I've had ongoing battles with Mr. Diamond for 20 years, 15 years when I was here. You need to sit down with him and work out an agreement with him where his 3 people can keep the licenses that they got under Measure O. I personally don't want you to do that, but that is the only way I can think of as a lawyer that you can get an agreement to dismiss his appeal. And it's not going to be tasteful. And he's going to want more than you're going to have to give him, I think, to get him to do it, by the way. Because Roger always, reaches for the stars. But are his clients, those 3 clients, going to want to continue to pay him to continue an expensive appeal if they're already going to get their licenses? I think not. He's going to want you to waive taxes. He's going to want you to waive fees and all of that. You're going to have to deal with that. But I think our city attorney is on his game. I think he's got a good staff. I'd love to say this because I hired most of them, but he's slowly replacing some of them. But they're really good. But I think they have the ability to get in and do a good deal with Mr. Diamond and get Measure O off the table so this council still has, the window hasn't quite closed yet. You can still get in on the ground floor. All these people wouldn't be here if that wasn't the case. You need to adopt that ordinance. You need to adopt a new ordinance regulating marijuana, and then you need to strictly enforce it, and you need to get money from the people that you license to pay for the extra police officers and extra code officers to enforce it. I can tell you that the clients that our firm represents are willing to pay substantial sums of money in fees and understand they are likely to be taxed. They're willing to do that. Some of them are even willing to help fund a campaign to pass a council-written ordinance to compete with the ordinance that Mr. Diamond may be supporting to replace Measure O. There's money out there. And I think you respectfully need to be better organized this time if you do that, and I think you should do that, because the city should get good revenue from this business. And you're not getting it under Measure O, and you're not getting what this city is going to need under state law. You have special needs here. We're pretty much the marijuana capital already of the Inland Empire. Maybe Paris is a bit ahead of us, but no one in this town has problems getting marijuana. You just don't. But it ought to be regulated by the city. But you've got to get an ordinance on the books, and you need to set a timeline that is much, much sooner than 10 months, because you're going to miss the train. You're absolutely going to miss the train. With my clients, there's a lot of opportunities. A lot of other cities are coming around to this way of thinking, and they're ready to give you a lot of money. And I'm talking about a total aggregate amount. If you had 10 or 15 licensed centers, I see $1 million to $2 million a year easy, maybe more. And you can do a lot with that in terms of enforcement. There are different ways you can do it. And current laws can be changed. You can lobby in Sacramento to change current laws. There are a lot of things that can be done. And I suspect the city may already be negotiating with Mr. Diamond. I'm sure Mr. Sines is well ahead of the game on this. But I want to share that with the council as well. But in the meantime, don't let somebody else give licenses to people who operate clinics here, or not clinics anymore, dispensaries here, or grows here, because you're going to have a hard time getting rid of them once they're here. Your Honor, thank you for your time. Mr. Sines. Mr. Singh.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to suggest that the court admonishes the public speakers to confine themselves to the issue of extending the moratorium. As the mayor indicated, we have an hour that's allocated so that everybody has an opportunity to speak. There are a lot of issues on marijuana that we'd all like to discuss, but today we're here for purposes of extending the moratorium. So if the speakers confine themselves to that issue, it would help getting all speakers an opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
My apologies, Your Honor, if I went beyond my purview. Thank you for that
Thank you.
admonition, Mr. Sines.
Majid Siraj. Okay. Mark Estemeyer.
Mayor, council, staff, yeah, I'm sure that you're as tired of hearing me as I'm actually saying with what I keep on coming up here and saying. And I hope that I'm going to say something different. And it is specifically about extending the moratorium or just simply letting it expire. And with what Mr. Penman was saying is talking about additional lawsuits, additional stuff coming down if you don't extend this. The truth of the matter is, if you do extend it, I'm fearful of with what potentially could happen. The ramifications long-term are going to ripple well past Mr. Penman's 2-3 years. We just came out of 2016 that was pretty much a mess. You know, we got an ordinance that has been proven, for most part, invalid, and this thing just needs to simply go away right now. You will have the time to go ahead and put yourself together a real comprehensive ordinance by allowing the moratorium to expire. Doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to come in and do it. With what we would just simply like to see you do is allow the moratorium to expire. Allow the businesses that are here operating that can qualify. And trust me, when it comes to 60 operators out there right now, I promise you, at least 40 or 50 of them are not going to be able to qualify. They simply don't have the skill set, they don't have the resources, and they're just going to end up getting flushed away anyway. The quickest thing that you can do to move this issue forward is let the moratorium expire. Let the licensees that actually are going to be able to get one, the applicants, get them. And you can actually monitor all of this very, very easily. You'll be able to know who the operators are and the people that actually have a vested interest. And the ones that are not complying with state law, it's going to be easy to find them also. So if you're looking at getting rid of the black market, it's certainly the fastest way to make something like that happen. But when it comes to implementing any kind of ordinance, do it rapidly. You have all the information. You don't have to wait 6 months, 10 months. You can actually get it done in the next 30 days, maybe 60 days. Get it all wrapped up. I promise you, there will be plenty of time for us to be able to put any kind of measure that is going to relate to taxes. We can actually make that happen for the June ballot if you wanted something like that to happen. But the moratorium extension, that's just bad business right now. And I would be fearful for not just the industry, but more specifically for the patients, your constituents. We've already been fielding enough phone calls that we don't know what to say to them anymore. After today, we're going to have something that we're going to be able to tell them. And my hope is that we're going to be able to apply for the license. If we have to go back and tell your constituents, nope, they kicked this can down the road one more time, and they're going to be upset. They're already upset. You know, I'll start publishing phone numbers and that kind of, here, call them, let them know what you think. But I'm here actually for the residents, for your constituents. I'm speaking for them, okay? I have a whole bunch of them. But please, 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 you know, let this thing end right now, and so we can all move on. Let this moratorium expire. Please, I'm begging you, please let it happen. Thank you, council, staff, mayor.
Kim Smith, have you been sworn in?
Yes, I stood in.
You stood in.
Yes. My name's Kim Smith, and I would like the moratorium to not be extended. My business partner, Ray, spoke earlier, and what I want to talk about is the people that are being hurt by the moratorium. My patients are people that have cancer. I watched my mother die of brain cancer. I watched my daughter die of cancer. But I bought the oils for them. They didn't want to take them. I cured my dog's skin cancer with the oils. That's when I really started researching. I wanted to find a place where I could buy the oils and trust that I would be in a safe place. So after doing all my research, I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to make a safe place, a comfortable place, where patients can come in and get the medications. So that's what my goal was, is to have the oils, the creams, the tinctures, the things that that patients are looking for, that all of these little places that, and I'm a little place too, but I have an attorney, I put in all my paperwork, I've been trying to do everything right. I want to pay my taxes. I want to help San Bernardino, and myself, of course, and especially my patients. I have a patient that's in his 80s with a fractured vertebrae that the only thing he can take is Tylenol, but the marijuana oils help him. A 97-year-old that has severe post-traumatic stress disorder and was having horrible nightmares every night. The only thing that has made his nights comfortable is the marijuana. I also have a friend that his wife is home on hospice. She has metastatic cancer. He's a friend and a patient. And the only thing that has given her any relief is the concentrated marijuana oils. Now, this isn't going to save her life. She has cancer everywhere. She has 9 tumors in her brain. But with the help of the marijuana, her life is being extended. But more importantly, the quality of her life has improved. So I worked in healthcare for more than 20 years. I actually used to speak at schools against smoking because I'm a respiratory therapist, but I also spoke against marijuana. And when we started giving marijuana to our patients at the Veterans Hospital, and it's the synthetic marijuana, it's not the other marijuana, it was for our patients that have end-stage lung disease because they feel like an elephant is on their chest all the time. Every moment they have hunger for air, and that is the way they live until they finally suffocate and die. Now, morphine does relieve air hunger, but it also stops your breathing. So we're very limited on what we could do for these people that are gasping for breath all the time. We found that the marijuana, well, of course the synthetic, dronabinol or Marinol, was one thing that relieved their air hunger. I had patients that were on oxygen and they called constantly that I'd go in and see them and they'd say, no, I feel good now. They'd also be able to eat because for the most part it helps their appetite. So the people that are being hurt the worst are the patients. Many of them are disabled. They live in San Bernardino. They need a clean, safe place to go. And you're shutting down the safe places along with the places that aren't safe. But by shutting down the safe places, you allow the people that want to break the law and just do it in hidden corners and just serve substandard products and don't have the tinctures, don't have the oils. You're allowing them to flourish. I know you want to get rid of them, and I want to get rid of them too. I want places like mine and other people like Mark that will have a clean, safe environment and follow the state laws and pay their taxes to San Bernardino. If there's income, if there's revenue coming into you, you will be in a better position to shut down places that are not following the rules. So, kind of lost my track right there, but that's really the essence of what I want to say. The people that are being hurt worst are the patients, the business owners that want to do right, that want to pay our taxes, that want everything to go well. I mean, you keep us out for so many months, what I'm going to do is start looking for another place, another city that is more friendly. I'd rather stay where I'm at. And then the business owners, my landlord, he's trying to rent out a building that's been empty for years, and I finally rented his building, and I pay all my bills on time, I pay the building insurance, I pay the electric bills. He's having that revenue taken away from him. And the prospect of not having anybody take over the rent because everything is up in the air. And you have empty places everywhere. I mean, an empty mall. Let's start turning this around. Let's get business in here. Yes, it's marijuana. Let's use it for something good. Thank you.
Barbara Babcock, you've been sworn in.
Last time, but I promise to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God, amen. Hi, Barbara Babcock.
Did you just swear yourself in?
I did, because I tell the truth. It's smart. It's easy to tell the truth because then you don't have to be real smart. People that lie have to keep track of their
Just for the record, though, let Gigi swear you in.
Okay, sure. You bet, amen. Thank you. Rich Lawhead is laughing at me. Now that he's a captain, he can do that. I have an idea, and I want to see if anybody from the audience would agree with me. What if instead of going 10 months and however many days, what if we had a 60-day ban or a 60-day moratorium? Would that work for anybody instead of going for 10 months? Just an idea to consider, because you do not have to take the entire time. I think it would be a thing of good faith if you were to show. Excuse me.
Well, the ordinance does not require that it go 10 months, 15.
Okay.
The ordinance is written with the flexibility that the council can act more expeditiously.
I understand. I just think that there is, frankly, I think that there is a feeling of bad will between some people, and Mr. Nichols is nodding. I think we need to show the people that we really want to take care of this city. The woman that spoke, I wish 40 years ago my mother had had the opportunity to have cannabis. She was throwing up 30, 40, 50 times a day. It's the only thing that works for me. Last time I came, I had some people shocked because I actually held up my 2 vape pens. And people go, oh my God, what is she doing? It's the only thing that really works. I am right now taking codeine because I get it for free. The medical marijuana helps me. I take it only when I need it. And I think we need to come to the conclusion that we are going to do the right thing for our citizens, and that includes bringing revenue. And if you guys will just show us that you were trying to do, nobody probably realizes that this is an election year, and this is going to affect the elections. Anyway, do the right thing, and give your pledge that you will get this thing done in 60 days or less. You do not have to drag it out for 10 months. Thank you.
Roy Murray.
I do. My name's Roy Murray from San Bernardino. I'm glad to be back. Hello, everybody. Cannabis has been used for 5,000 years as an ancient medicinal herb. The Egyptians used it. Jesus used it in his anointing oils. It's only been vilified in a crime for the last 80 years because of an unholy alliance between Harry Anslinger, DuPont, and William Randolph Hearst. Before that, cannabis tinctures could be found in medicine cabinets all across the United States. Jim Penman commented about the effects of cannabis on young children. I urge everybody to Google Landon Riddle. He's a young boy that was dying of leukemia, and cannabis saved his life. I don't agree with Proposition 64. I thought Prop 215 was a much better deal. And Measure O isn't perfect, but the people have voted on it, and the people have spoken. I think your opposition to cannabis, you're on the wrong side of history here. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Montes. Just as a reminder also, the city attorney has indicated that the public hearing is on the moratorium, so keep your comments related to the moratorium. Thank you.
I do. Jim Montez, IE Normal. Normal's position is to support responsible marijuana policy. So I want to say that first, because I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. But I do support the moratorium. I always tell my kids the lazy man works twice as hard. And I believe that that's what I'm watching happen in multiple cities. It takes a lot more time and effort to go back and fix a dysfunctional ordinance. It puts the city in harm's way, as well as the cannabis community, because then there's lawsuits that people talk about, and it becomes a big, huge mess. And I see multiple cities a week, many, many cities a week. I see things differently. Everybody has their own perspective. I do see that you guys are trying to put something in place. I don't think that this is another delay tactic. And what I don't like to see is the bullying that's going on. If we're going to be a community, we have to be a community, and this is probably one of the most important spots that we try to unite. Positive change is rarely, if ever, the product of degradation and hostility, and I see a lot of it at every meeting. If we don't want to see the same outcome, we don't want to have multiple initiatives, go through the same process again, then we should stop submitting multiple initiatives. We should start talking and communicating on a level that's going to be productive instead of how it's happening now.
And if nothing else, I hope the moratorium allows that to happen, because that's what I think needs to happen here. I do believe that San Bernardino could be that iconic city, that the one that does it right. We have the elements that most of the cities are lacking, the other cities are lacking. We have the power, we have the building, we have the land, but Rome wasn't built in a day. So I think if we kind of just take a step back, support the people that are up here, submit the information, and work together, just step back just for a second. Patients have other resources. They have other ways to get their products. I know, I'm a patient. And a lot of the products that are in black market dispensaries are black market products, and they aren't tested. So I'm not going to go there. So I'm not worried about it, because I'm worried about my health. My health is first. So I'm going to go find a tested product that I can take that I'm going to be sure is going to be fine. And other serious patients, I feel, will do that as well. And if they don't, well, that's their choice. I understand that as well. But I think the focus is, what are we trying to build? And let's not just rush through it and be back here again in another year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes public comments for the hearing. We have, Mr. Kim, did you speak at the public hearing previously? Yes, you did. Thank you. So today is for those who did not get a chance to speak at the prior hearing, so you've already had an opportunity. No, Carmel Rowe was asked to come, she was on the list first, and so the others that we took the slips from were those who had not spoken. So thank you. We now have...
I'd like to move the resolution for the moratorium.
Thank you. We have a set motion to second. Councilman Nickel.
Yeah, and I do want to urge our staff that will be working on this ordinance. Everyone who spoke today, you have been heard, and loud and clear. And we do need to get this done. This needs to get done in short order. I agree. I don't think it necessarily is going to take us 10 months. And I think once we've got an ordinance on the books, if necessary, we can adjust it as time goes by. But the industry deserves this. I think the consumers deserve this. I think our community deserves this. The limbo needs to be put to an end, and we need to have some finality in terms of having an ordinance that meets the needs of our city on the books and in short order. So I would request, I know there was a request to come back to this body every 30 days. I would like to recommend that we get that report. I think we've got some good people in the audience that do have some good ideas. I want to make sure that we're engaging this industry, that we're getting the feedback we need, so that we do this right. We can't fumble this ball again. We've done it a number of times. We can't do it again. The industry is here. Let's do this right. Let's get an ordinance on the books. I want to see this come back to us ideally in 30, no more than 60 days. And let's get this thing passed, and let's give the community what it deserves. Thank you.
City Manager.
Our plan is actually to have something back before you, the first meeting in February, with not only some draft regulations, but also kind of a pathway forward, because this does require Planning Commission approval. So included in the report will be dates and times and milestone dates.
Thank you. Councilman Barrios.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager, what is the plan? So just to give some insight for our audience here as far as when we come back, because I didn't come here prepared to support this moratorium. And I need more information to know what's the road ahead looking like. Are we looking at, okay, we're going to come back on the 7th. What then after that? Bottom line, what is our intent as a city to deliver the ordinance so that our community can start operating?
As I mentioned just a moment ago when I responded to Councilmember Nickel, and also at the last couple of meetings, Our plan would be to come back to you in February, the first meeting in February, with some draft regulations and also a timeframe. This does require Planning Commission approval. We have talked to the Planning Commissioners. They do have a very full plate in February about expanding the number of meetings that they have next month so that they can have one meeting just dealing with cannabis regulations. So I'm hoping to have that meeting confirmed. And then the pathway, because this will require ultimately a first and final reading by the City Council, so a schedule for that.
So what does that time frame look like? Because I just want the people to understand, too, the process we're going through, because we get beat up here.
Right.
Because we're not moving forward. And they need to understand the process that we're going through as well, and the steps to that we need to make in order to put a proper ordinance in place.
It will be before you, and it will be incumbent upon the council to actually vote on that. So my goal would be to have something to you by the end of February that you can begin the reading process that you legally are required to go through. So again, that can move as quickly as the council can take action on those items.
So we're maybe looking at the middle of March.
Middle of March.
That an ordinance is dropped. Here you guys go.
And then keep in mind that by law, any ordinance that you adopt, and we are looking at urgency provisions and things like that and our ability to actually recommend those, but any ordinance would be enforceable 30 days thereafter from the final reading.
So the final reading being in March.
So about April. But during that process, certainly if people, once the council's taken action on it, there's information that they will be required to submit, they can begin preparing their applications.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Marquez, City Attorney.
I'd just like to mention, I think everybody understands, but the extension of the moratorium gives the council the ability to do what was just described in terms of bringing forth an ordinance and adopting an ordinance to and maintains the ability of council to control marijuana businesses in the city. And that's primarily what the extension is designed to do. And so that's what's before you now, is the extension to allow you to accomplish those things that have just been described to you by the city manager and by the discussion with Councilman Barrios.
Councilmember Marquez, the Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of the framework steps that our city manager just described, it's in our packet, and it's very detailed. I'm pretty much interested in the community component, and when we take it to the road, I think that's going to be very crucial to inform and educate the community about what this is and what it isn't, and to obtain their feedback. And according to this, it's somewhere between March and April, and I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Councilmember Charette.
City Manager, what's the best method for anybody that wants to submit input? Should that be done via email, or is there a place that we're gathering information from people that want to comment, and not necessarily comment, but say, I'd like to see this included, or I'd like to see that included?
We have been fortunate, and in fact, some of the people who've spoken have provided written information to us, and so as we're preparing draft regulations, we've attempted to look at the things. Remember, you had a Citizens Advisory Committee that, while they were asked to look at those issues that were not covered in Measure O, so they didn't deal with commercial cannabis businesses, they did at times discuss issues that were relevant to that. So we've attempted to look at those recommendations. We have had some of the unions that have spoken here this afternoon provide documents that we've reviewed. You've had I.E. Normal. She spoke a few minutes ago, so she has provided some comments. So again, we are trying to consolidate all those, evaluate those as part of the process, and then provide for you as to your analysis kind of a matrix that shows where we receive the information from, the suggestions from, and how they were either incorporated or not incorporated. If someone has additional thoughts that they would like, all they need to do is send those to my office. We're calling through those emails, printing those. We have various staff members that are working on the draft regulations. Certainly the City Attorney's Office has been instrumental in developing the regulations. Our consultant from HDL, remember we have a team of people that have consulted with other cities, and then our own planning staff. So if it's sent to my office, we will make sure that that gets out to all the different departments that are working on regulations.
So it would be fair to say that what we plan to do and what we're hoping to come up with is a compilation of our committee. We're not just rubber stamping any committee that we have out there. We ask them to vet information and bring recommendations, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we just approve or accept them just on face value. As well as comments that have been made by the public that have good input. And some of it we'll agree with, and some of it we won't. But again, our hope And for the public's information, we've not made a decision up here that we are pro or con marijuana. I think it was said by a couple of people. It's here to stay. We just want to make sure that it's done in the most effective and productive way for our community and for our residents. So having a broad compilation of all the information out there, best practices, people that have operated and know some of the ins and outs of the issues, law enforcement, our committee that worked hard and diligently on this, that we're going to really bring all this together and come up with, I hope will be an ordinance second to none that maybe could be a model throughout the country, frankly, that we're doing this right, and we do want to capture revenues, and we do want to make this the medicinal available to patients in our community, and be friendly to the business community, and have everybody come out of this ahead. So agree with what Henry said. I will change slightly, and that is that I wouldn't say I want it in 30 days or 60 days. I want it as fast as possible, and I think we know that. And I think well, that doesn't mean 15 days. I'm saying if we need to go 65 or 70, then we need to do that. But I'm just saying that we do it right, and that we get this right, and that it be somewhat bulletproof, so that when all is said and done, we've got what's best for our community.
And I would just add, there are groups certainly that have provided information to us, but over the last several weeks, as the council has taken public testimony about this, and just comments that we've received from people, as they are aware that the council's been addressing this, we've been taking copious notes on those things as well. So it's not just organized groups, it's even some of the individuals, the people who've spoken and had particular interests in areas of this.
Thank you.
Councilman Valdivia.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to extend my deep appreciation to our community and industry partners here who have sent a strong signal to our elected body that we need to take some ownership on this issue. This is clearly an issue that we need, as elected a body, to take the lead. This has been in our bucket for several years now. And so I'm glad to hear many of the comments and some of the direction and suggestions that our industry partners and community have suggested. I have an open door policy with many of you, understanding the issues, understanding industry practices, and so we certainly appreciate your attendance here today. The issue of speed, I think, needs to be paramount in this entire discussion. There needs to be time posts and timelines. The metrics and the outcomes should be reasonable, and I think that if we can all operate within the guidance and provisions of quicker than later, understanding that we have a very pandemic issue here in this community, understanding that the health and welfare and well-being of citizens in our community certainly is my main focus. I get calls consistently from our community partners, stakeholders, neighborhood council presidents that are battling the issue of how to walk Johnny to the street and the issues affecting Johnny's life, as well as issues around quality of life issues. So this is an important issue. This is more of a land use issue for me, as I kind of understand it, and understanding really how we need to put and make some lemonade out of this entire issue. So, Ms. City Manager, my commitment is that we need to really work fast and feverishly, that staff should be focused and attentive to details on the suggestions that the community has offered, and that we also need to make sure that at the forefront is the time clock. I have suggested back for many, many months, last year in 2017, that the looming deadline was December 31st for the taxing provision. And yet we here are now, February 1st, talking about issues after the effect. I'm glad for the moratorium in the sense that we have a flag down in the 2017 calendar year for the taxing component. So I think that coming back to the council with a taxing component option so that we have a pick list, essentially a pick list of all the recommendations, and we can somehow supplement that pick list, A through Z, or however we're going to list it, incorporate into an ordinance. I'm also looking for all 17 buckets, both on recreational and medicinal marijuana, and how we can incorporate and accommodate this industry. This is very important. We need to get a handle on this. The best way to get the handle is that we take leadership. So with that, I appreciate the community. I think also on the last comment is the committee. I want to send my deep appreciation to the committee members. At first, back in September, when Mayor Davis recommended this Blue Ribbon Committee, I pushed back on it. And at the end of the day, we still have not heard formally, we haven't even processed those recommendations. So I'm a little saddened that we haven't, as a official body, heard the recommendations. Now, we've read it, they've been included, they've had it in our backup material, but we have never formally discussed any of their recommendations here at this body. So I'm a little disappointed that we haven't had that opportunity. Nevertheless, my commitment is thank you for your service to the community. Thank you, you stakeholders, you commissioners who have made your recommendations. It's unfortunate that sometimes City Hall never listens to you. But I've listened to you, I've met with you, I heard you, and I appreciate what you've done for our community. This has certainly been ankle weights on a lot of our discussion, but I hope that we can really bring some good policy together. And there's been a comment made that, you know, we need a bulletproof, and I agree, Mr. Charette, but at the same time, we understand that our business is policy making, it's legislation, and there are always unintended consequences with any policy that a city council or a Congress or a Senate or Assembly House makes. And so I encourage that our industry partners understand that nothing's perfect, and but at least we have more meat on the bone to really process this and understand it, provide guardrails for the community, and certainly mitigate and control this very important issue. Thank you.
City Manager, it's my recollection that the recommendations that were put forward by the Citizen Advisory Committee have been made available to the council.
Yes, they have. And again,
Thank you.
remember, they did make a report.
Thank you. Councilman Overhill.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Again, looking at the Citizens Committee recommendations, obviously we've read them and we are going to take them into consideration. But the point is, we really haven't gotten down to the specifics of the ordinance that we're creating. Some of the speakers indicate that, particularly last time, that the citizens' recommendations, they went over this, and we should simply accept them and move on. The reality is, we're creating law here. We're creating an ordinance. It's and I'm sure that the city attorney could explain to you about legislative functions. We're going to be responsible for what comes out of here. The Citizens Committee is not going to be responsible for what comes out of here. It's our responsibility. And the point is, we've got a large, complex constituency to address. The speakers here, for the most part, they got money interest in this. That's why they're here. The citizens the 45% that didn't vote for this, they're not here. They don't have any financial interest, but they will have a lot of quality of life interest in it, because there's lots of issues. And some of the issues that we will be talking about is the same kind of issues that we have for liquor stores, for retail outlets. They'll have the same kind of loitering problems, among other things. And so my basic point is, this isn't a winner-take-all. Many of the speakers talk as though, well, 55% voted for this. Well, our constituency is 100% of the voting population. And we've got to recognize that there's a number of complex issues, particularly for residential areas, and people living and owning homes in our city. And I've already gotten concerns from many of my residents regarding the issues that have already cropped up. And you've heard them too, with regard to why are there all these marijuana facilities? And how come there's all this stench coming out of my neighbor's yard because he's raising cannabis. We're going to have to look at that. And again, I know specifically, I came to virtually every meeting that I think that was one of the advantages of having the Citizens Committee mull this over, is that I came to each one of the meetings except for one, in which there was another meeting I had to get to, and to listen to the discussion. And there were several issues I definitely did not agree with. And so, again, we're going to be using the citizens' advice, the citizens' conclusions, but the reality is we're the ones that are responsible for making law. And we have got to make it right for all the citizens. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Richard.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First, I want to ditto what all of my colleagues said up here. You know, everybody had a lot of good comments, and I also want to ditto a lot of the constituents that are here in the audience and those that aren't from San Bernardino. You know, you guys have to understand. You know, we're the ones that live here. You guys are working. You guys probably have businesses here, but we're the ones that live here. And like when I walked in the door, Charette was talking, and he said, "You know what? This is the time for us to do it right. We have to take our times and do it right. Guaranteed, if we did it wrong, you guys will be right back here up at the mic talking about we did it wrong. So you guys have to allow us the time, and I agree with everybody else. It's not going to take 10 months. So you just have to allow the time to us to get it right. So that way you don't have to come back up here and tell us what we did wrong. So I appreciate everybody that came out, and I know that a lot of people have taken time out of their work day or whatever day it is for you to come out and speak. And I want you guys to understand that and to know that you guys have been heard. We've listened, and I know that I have. And I've learned a lot through this whole process and still have a lot to learn, especially taking it from somebody that knew absolutely nothing about marijuana. Okay? So I've learned a lot. But I also want to say that when you talk about the medicinal marijuana, you're absolutely right. They're going to be able to get it. You know, so to get up at the mic and say that we're going to leave, we can't. You know, you're hurting that community. You guys have been getting it before this. So you will still be able to get it. Allow us to do it right. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Barrios.
Just want to know, City Manager, maybe City Attorney, because, you know, I do keep in the back of my mind, you know, the patients that are out there right now. And like Ray that spoke earlier, there's people that need medicine now. Is there a way to allow a temporary permitting process for those only selling medicinal marijuana or medicinal products up until we get an ordinance in place?
We would need to go through the same process, and that would take time to craft regulations that we would have to bring back to you at a subsequent meeting. And quite frankly, if we stop our efforts from dealing with the whole, you know, we certainly can, but then again, that may push out dealing with all of it. So we would need to craft regulations that created a temporary process for regulating just medicinal.
Why wouldn't we be able to default to the state law for now?
You know, certainly Stephen and Mark can add some context to this, but there are issues with the state law. There are some areas that are not that well thought through. You could not defer to them for a period of time and then re-regulate. So, again, we would need to craft those regulations, and that would take us certainly at least a few days to do that. Yeah. And Stephen, if you wanted to add about the state regulations.
Sure. One of the things I would say is the state regulations aren't final yet.
Right.
We if we were directed to, we could certainly draft, go through the process of getting a system in place that allows temporary uses. You know, we are working 150% on getting you guys a regulatory ordinance that you want. Mm-hmm. I don't want to dissuade people from filing more ex parte TROs, but, you know, every time someone does something like that, or every additional side project, it makes it harder for us to complete the task and get it to you by the next meeting, which is what the city manager has indicated is our intent. So, you know, In theory, we could. I think there's some concerns about, giving people temporary uses. Our goal is to prevent defaulting to only state regulations. That's the point of the moratorium, is to allow you to do the locational restrictions, the absolute limit restrictions on number. But if that is the will of the council, it would be something that is, in theory, possible, yes.
Because like I said, are we going to address that today as far as, for those people that have medicinal uses? And if anything, if we're not allowing them to operate, can we at least stop busting down their doors?
We currently have a ban in place, and we would have to come back for regulations, and so we could do that. But again, our goal is to have a full, comprehensive regulatory scheme back for you to begin to review, so you have something to send to the Planning Commission by the next meeting. We would have to stop those efforts if you want to redirect us to focus on a temporary process for medical or medicinal marijuana.
I just wanted to bring up the issue so we don't forget about that. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion. We have a motion and a second.
The motion is to adopt ordinance number MC 1457. It was made by Mr. Mulvihill, seconded by Ms. Marquez. Ms. Marquez? Yes. Mr. Barrios? Mr. Valdivia? Mr. Charette?
Yes.
Mr. Nickel?
Yes.
Ms. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Mulvihill?
Yes.
The item passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the council for taking the time to deliberate on this issue and to meet at this special adjourned meeting. Also like to thank the public for your interest and your comments. I think it is important, as Councilmember Charette pointed out, that there are a number of consequences that we need to consider, and in future meetings, I believe that we'll be exploring those. This time, we will now turn the time over again to public comments on items not on the agenda. Carmel Rowe. Soon Kim.
Turn on your mic. Council members, Honorary Mayor Davis, I just want to add to today's discussion. You could just announce that you will not raid any cannabis business in the next 10 months. That we have a free market here in San Bernardino that could thrive if you just let it, and that you should start taking applications right away because it'll take a while for them to be processed. Now, I just did some numbers. There's probably room for 20 dispensaries in San Bernardino. If that is so, you'll take 20 applications at $250 each, and there'll be $50,000 left. You'll be collected to start the permit process. Now, if you allowed at least 2,000 permits in San Bernardino and allowed small grows to operate, at $250, 2,000 permits is $500,000. That's quite a bit of money to start the permit process in the city that you will have in the bank. I feel like I'm not speaking for the cannabis industry. I'm speaking, and not for myself. I think that each one of us in this city could make a living from this new agriculture industry that is connected to the healthcare industry. It is not an illicit drug, and you guys could just make all the difference right now. The whole of California and the United States is watching us today. I don't know if you know it or not. We are the laboratory. We are the last place in the United States to set the example for everyone else. And we have a local community of experts that are good at what they do, who need to be protected from the large monies that are coming in, who have no interest in keeping their money here in the city. The large growers will take all that money outside of San Bernardino, and you will never have all that income floating through the city.
the taxes are the minor issue here. The amount of money that's going to be coming through the city from the generation of all these businesses is going to boost everyone's real estate, city credibility, national attention. So we have opportunity to really make a difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any comments from the council? Not, this meeting is adjourned until our next regular meeting, Wednesday, February 7th at 4 p.m. here in the council chambers.